Why, I do declare, Mr. Synoiz, that is a fine chocolate eclair that you have there. I don't suppose you'd be willing to share that eclair.
Why, Captain Goodwill, I presume. I do declare that it is very debonair of you to declare that you ought to share my eclair. However, what if I were to say I had a pair of eclair that I was not willing to share?
But, Mr. Synoiz, you have a pair of eclair.
Why, yes. Oh, is it not fair that I don't want to share my eclairs?
You mean to declare that you're not willing to share your pair of eclair?
Yes, Captain Goodwill, I do indeed declare that this pair of eclair is not for the sharing.
Can I at least have one? Oh, I do declare this is a very nice chocolate eclair.
Certainly not as fucking messy as the one I've got here.
I do declare this is a nice chocolate eclair, Mr. Synoiz.
Why, yeah, I do declare it is most fair that I share my eclair with you, my most debonair Captain Goodwill.
Thank you very much. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers throughout this fine planet. Welcome to a live episode of Trekkin Up North. I am Samuel Clemens.
There appears to be cream on my mouse. I need to just lick this cream off my mouse for my eclair. Who knows what I'm clicking on right now?
I do declare I do not think that this is safe for YouTube, Mr. Synoiz.
Well, I'm gonna put it on my only eclairs.
Oh,
Which is like OEC. I don't quite know how acronyms work, Captain Goodwill.
welcome everybody to another fine episode of Trekkin Up North. I am, of course, Captain Goodwill as Mark Twain, and joining me as ever is the delectable Geesian from the planet Honk.
Do declare, honk.
It is Science Officer Synoiz, also as Mark Twain. We are the Twin Twains.
And also, I appear to have quite a mess of eclairs on my plate now. It's like some kind of creepy smash burger. However,
I do declare that is quite a mess of eclairs.
oh my word, can I do it without interrupting my delightful little mustache? Also, I noticed that if I put this additional bit of the beard on, I suddenly have a taste for fried chicken.
Oh, you mean to say this little thing that completes the Van Dyke right there?
Yeah.
Oh, I do declare.
Look, oh my word.
Oh,
These eclairs are finger-licking good.
I do declare, I wish to cover my eclair in 11 herbs and spices that only I will know about. I do declare. Welcome everybody to another episode of Trekkin Up North. I'm Captain Goodwill, he's Science Officer Synoiz. As you can probably tell, we are all here to review the seminal Next Generation 2-parter, Time Zero, featuring everybody's favorite literary author.
He's not even called Arthur.
I don't even think this is a cigar. Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens. This is Colonel Sanders. Yes, Transporter. I am finger licking good. We are.
I don't wish to alarm you, Captain Goodwill, but it appears, I do declare, that the cream from my eclair has started to undo the adhesive upon my facial hair implement.
Are you meaning to tell me that you've got cream from your eclair in your facial hair?
Oh,
That's very debonair of you.
Everywhere. It's fucking everywhere. Oh no! I do declare! Oh! The world is a attempted to shave me. We've gone from the 1800s to the 1930s. Very quickly. I will attempt to readhere my facial appendage. It is coming off again. It is not long for this one. I might need to find myself a stapler. Or maybe I can put a band-aid upon it and stick it in place using the power of adhesives. That was not a success. Hold on. While we're here, I will go full Wario Mark Twain. You can be the good Mark Twain, I will be the evil Mark Twain.
We are, oh my God, we've only been live 7 minutes. Well, the things we do for a YouTube short. We are here to review the classic. We are here to review the classic Next Generation episode, Time's Arrow, which Science Officer Synoiz right here put in the Dabo Wheel of Shame. And I'm hoping upon this review, my mustache is coming off.
Is it coming off?
I'm hoping at the end of this review, Science Officer Synoiz has changed his mind and he thinks that this is a mighty fine episode of The Next Generation, and he does declare it live on Trekkin Up North. In the meantime, though, hello to everybody in the live chat. We have got the very handsome and muscular David. We've got Chuck. We've got the transporter room. We've got Peaches here. Who else have we got? We got the wonderful Beth. We got the wonderful Velvet Snatch, whoever the hell that is. Thank you so much for everyone coming into this. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for putting up with our really bad jokes. Do you think I should stop the voice now?
We lost it as long as we did.
Stop being so serious, guys. We're trying. But, oh, God, I think I'm going to have to stop that accent. It's playing up in my throat.
It's actually getting addictive. The more I do it, the more I think I get slightly good at it. However,
I do declare. However, so we are here. We are back. We are live finally again. We have had the craziest schedules over the last few weeks. That is why it has been intermittent with our live shows. However, with fingers crossed, we should be able to do Thursdays, either recorded or live. We should be able to stick to Thursdays now that Science Officer Synoiz's schedule is now starting to clear up a little bit, the busy little bee that he is.
Now that your schedule has started to clear up a little bit as well, which is good. So we will endeavour to be getting back to a weekly schedule for everyone. But
my schedule is clear as fuck. My schedule is so clear, they're like, you don't need a job.
I'm moving the eclairs away from me.
You moving the eclairs?
I'm moving the... I do declare the eclairs are most... I don't know, I've run out of words. I didn't have enough to start with that rhymed with eclair, but...
the eclairs are out of there. Anyway.
But we are doing it now. This episode, well, 2 episodes, Time's Arrow Part 1 and 2. I put these in the Dabo Wheel of Shame because you know what it's like with any series you watch. Even if you're a big fan, you binge it, you watch through it again, and then you get to a particular episode and you're like, oh, it's this one. And this is definitely my one for TNG. This is the kind of, oh God, it's this one again.
Really?
And yeah, it really is. And so what I've tried to do is I've tried to pinpoint like what I don't like about it. You know, what I don't like about it like this time. And obviously my opinion has changed a fair bit, having rewatched it, but we will get into that. But it's an interesting one. Because it's something that, like we say, people in the chat have been saying, they really enjoy it. It's like a fan favorite. And yet I'm like going, oh, I'm the only one who's not really on par with this? Okay, cool.
I was very shocked when you put Time's Arrow into the Dabo Wheel of Shame, because it is one of my favourite two-parters from the Next Generation, coming from a season which I regard as the best season of Star Trek: The Next Generation by far. We had some absolute belters in this season, some of which we have already reviewed on Trekkin Up North. And to end off with a time travel episode, look, time travel episodes are always fun. I recently just watched the DS9 two-parter where they go back to the Bell Rights in 2024. I mean, how accurate did they get it 30 years ago? But it you know, and I really enjoyed it. And I sat down today because I had nothing going on because I'm unemployed, and I sat down with a nice with not a chocolate eclair, but I sat down with a nice cup of tea, and I watched Time's Arrow, and I thought, yeah, this is a slightly strange episode. However, it is a good episode overall, and it's a time travel episode, and for me, Mark Twain does it for me. Mark Twain really is the start of this whole episode. Hi everyone on mobile, just checking in. Love the outfits. I do declare, Cassandra. Thank you so much, Cassandra. I do declare. Would you, Cassandra? I do declare, Cassandra. Would you like a declare? I do declare. Would you like to share my Claire, Cassandra? No? Okay. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I mean, the first part for me is the stronger part of the two-parter. We get more of a focus on San Francisco, and I just think it just plays a lot better. But overall, yeah, I would have put this in the Dabo Wheel of Honor if we were allowed more episodes.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I'll agree with you there, where I do think that the first part is a lot stronger. When I was rewatching it, I kind of realized that all the things I dislike about it, all the things that made me go, "Oh God, it's this one," are in the second part. Because I think that the first part is wonderful. It's a wonderful Data episode. It's one of those ones where everyone has stuff to do, but it focuses on Data. It focuses on Guinan. And then it introduces other characters like the bellhop Jack London and the real person, and Mark London. Twain, and whatnot. And it's this idea of kind of, it sets all of them up and it works really well. And then the second episode kind of goes like, hey, ignore those characters. We're not gonna, the bellhop's gone now. Basically, we're not really we're gonna lose everything that we gained in the first episode, and then we're trying to shoehorn the rest of the crew into the episode. And that doesn't work. If I'm perfectly honest, that's what I struggle with.
As Chuck's point out in there, Mark Alimo and Ken Thornley have cameos in the first part of this as well. And it's just like, it's Mark Alimo, it's Ducat before we got Ducat. And
well, I do love, though, that we joke, how we joke about, oh God, I've totally forgotten his name, the actor who plays Wayun and...
Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, Jeffrey Combs. How have I forgotten Jeffrey Combs? But we joke about Jeffrey Combs having like so many roles throughout Trek, but then you have Mark Alimo, where when I was looking into this, I was like, wow, is this the... Because you know how it is, where they get one person on to do like a sort of guest spot, and then they go, wow, actually, you're really good. We're going to get you back, and then they'll bring them back as a main character, like we had with Jeffrey Combs. However, with Mark Alimo, I was like, is this his first cameo? And you're like, nope. He was in like 3 times before this. This is like, this is like his 5th cameo out of like 6 or 7 roles. And you're like, bloody hell. It's amazing, but I do like that he's in it. Everything about the first part, I was like, actually, why am I hating on this? And then when we got to the second part, I was like, oh, this is the stuff I don't like. And that's what's disappointing, the fact that that's a season starter as well. Like, that... I think though, in the wider context of Trek, is this the strongest end and beginning of a season? I don't think it is. I think this might have been one of the weaker sort of, cliffhangers and stuff to end on. But
so
there we go. That's my opinion. That's my stance on it.
So let's get into the brief synopsis of the episode for those that haven't seen it. And if you haven't seen it, what a moustache! I do declare, Mr. Cartier, Mr. Cartier. Mr. Cartier, would you like to share my Claire? Mr. Cartier?
We're gonna hold
Gotta
on.
do Claire.
I'm changing up my hairstyle now that I have it. There.
Oh, I do declare, you look like
I
Justin
feel
Bieber.
like an owl. I feel like.
You look like Justin Bieber. So yeah. The synopsis for Time's Arrow. An engineering team finds evidence of an alien presence on Earth in the 19th century San Francisco. Data's severed head, buried 500 years ago. So, literally,
Some people find head in a cave, basically. That's called cruising.
you learn something new every day. I'm checking up.
Why, I do declare that is called cruising where I come from.
Anyway, so yeah, like I said, the Enterprise is recalled back to Earth. They are going under this old discontinued mine shaft in San Francisco, where I think they were installing new seismic stabilizers or something, and then they find all these artifacts. They find a Colt 40, not Colt 45. I think it was a Colt 45. A watch,
A gun.
and
Yeah.
a gun. Yeah, a gun, and they find Data's severed head. Now, this episode brings a lot of nostalgia for me for all the positive reasons, because for many years, and I'm talking many, many years, every Star Trek convention I have been to, Data's severed head has always been the exhibit. And I'm serious. Like, my very first convention in 2012, Data's severed head. The conventions in 2018, 2019, Data's severed head. And then all the conventions last year, Data's severed head. This is a seminal artifact from Star Trek that they just said they just tour around the world, and it's not changed in 30 years.
It's also like that though, where with Mark Twain, like the character of Samuel Clemens has become an established thing for people to cosplay, and obviously recently we had the amazing bit in Lower Decks where we had the Twain-off. It's that idea of the fact that he's only in these 2 episodes. It's like even Moriarty has more screen time than Samuel Clemens.
Oh God, should we do Moriarty next?
Oh God! I don't think we've got a Moriarty episode in the Dabo Wheel.
Oh, damn
It's
it.
not in shame or honor,
Oh.
but we'll get around to it. Maybe when we add more episodes in, we could get to
Welcome
that
in,
episode.
Search for Trek. Everybody go subscribe to
Hey.
Search for Trek, please. Do it
We got
now.
some big wigs in here, don't I? Do declare. We
I
got
do
the
declare
Transformer.
our wigs are
We
big
got
enough.
We got Chuck A, TNG fanatic. We got
We
Mark
got-
Cartier.
We got all the YouTube royalty into this pokey little show, I do declare. But yeah, so so for Lower Decks to popularize this episode as well in their Twain-off, and to see all the costumes last year in STLV of Mark
Yeah.
Twain's and stuff like that, it was wonderful, and it was just purely because of Time's Arrow. And what I love about this episode, I mean, we'll get into the nitty gritty, but like you said, it has all the characters in it. In part
It's
one, part two.
iconic.
It's iconic, but it also
It's
has,
iconic. Sorry.
but it makes use of Guinan very well as well.
I think this is the thing. It's a strange one because it's like I don't know how I feel about Guinan in this one, because obviously
Really?
any episode that is like yay more lore for Guinan is amazing, but this feels very much like they're going, yeah, that was never intended. We've just made this up now. Like, you know, the whole thing, and like I don't know. It feels very much like her being like, oh yeah, of course I met you, but then I wouldn't tell you because reasons, and you just like, so you allowed this mysterious bullshit but not this. And
But I do declare, Mr.
there are
Synoiz,
reasons. It does give reasons, but it's very much just clever shoehorning.
to
feel.
paraphrase a currently controversial other sci-fi franchise, timey-wimey wibbly wobbly.
See, there's another example of something where they just don't think ahead.
Oh, hello.
The
Get out.
latest episode. But we don't talk about that, do we? Not on here. But
I'm getting
I
the
do
word
like it, though.
cancelled.
I get the word hiatus. Why, I do declare. We shouldn't actually. We shouldn't. Like a lot of people I know are very upset about it, who are big fans and whatnot. But
I'm not.
yes,
I find
so-
it funny. Continue on.
But one thing I will mention though, when we're talking about the bit in the cave, this is one of the first bits that made me laugh in the episode, because they literally have this bit in the cave where the guy's kind of coming along and he's like, "Hey, we're just excavating this cave. We found this stuff. Look, we found a watch. We found an old gun." And Picard's like, "Wow, this is amazing. Why are you showing me?" And then the guy's like, "Oh yeah, and a fucking android's head." And he's just like, start with that. Like
This guy-
that's what I would start with if I was showing anything off. It's just like, oh yeah, by the way, Data's head is here.
This,
you know?
this guy has got the penchant for suspense.
Yeah,
This is the guy where he's like, okay, so what we need you to do is also cover the head up with a rag as well, so when they walk in, they don't see it.
Yeah.
And we're just going to edge them. We're going to edge them with a watch, with a gun, and
He's
then
told to edge Picard.
and then when Picard is getting the most frustrated and blue-balled, I mean angried, we are going to give him head, literally.
Hey, that'll do it. That will do it. But,
I mean, it's a good cold open when you think about it, where it's just like, and it's Data's severed head.
I
And then
think that's the
bam.
thing. I think the thing I find that the more we analyze these episodes, the more I realize that my stuff that I don't enjoy is when you can see the wires a bit too much. And I think this is one of the two-parters where it's very much set up for the cliffhangers at commercial breaks or whatever, or it's set up for like, oh yeah, the cold open needs to end with a surprise, so let's just have him showing these artifacts in like not the order that you would do them in.
But don't you
But
think
it
that is?
works.
Don't you think that is peak '90s drama?
It is.
It's so nice and nostalgic. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Like I said, I have had a difficult few weeks. For those that know, I mean, I do declare this is my
If
real
this
hair
isn't the-
color.
If this isn't
Yeah.
the definition of a breakdown, I don't know what is.
This is all real. And to sit down and so what I've been doing, I would say very difficult. So I have not watched anything new. So I've got loads of things that I want to watch, and I have not, and I've just regressed back into Star Trek. So I'm currently watching season 3 of DS9, and what I have found is going back to these shows, going back to the 90s and essentially my childhood, there is a lot of comfort in those cliches that we see. Like the dramatic cold open, like the tense climax of the season 5 finale, and it just feels, yes, it's predictable, yes, it's like but I don't mind, because I don't know, it just gives me like warmth, and it gives me comfort, and it's just like, ooh, I just love it. And I love the fact that they go into these little dramas like this, these little, and we found this, and it's ahead, and then space, the final frontier, and oh shit, I didn't do my opening.
Oh yeah.
Space, the final frontier. Why have you got a skibbity haircut? These
I've
are
been
the
changing it
voyages.
a lot.
These are the voyages of the USS Adequate. Our ongoing mission, I do declare, until we are cancelled and replaced by something far superior, to review every episode and movie of Star Trek in existence, to seek out new guests who have not been on yet and make them very, very uncomfortable, to boldly go where many other Mark Twain impersonations have gone before. So back to the episode. Yeah,
How many minutes in? How many minutes in was that intro?
25. So it's a discovery cold open. You get half an hour into the episode and then you get the titles. So yeah, so it was just a degree of comfort watching this, and then just how shows were produced in the 90s and the level of detail, and like time travel episodes. You know they are studio backlots. You know that they are not real bricks and stuff like that. But there is just an innate nostalgic comfort to looking at this. You know, like when we see a fistful of datas and it's like the Wild West and stuff like that, and it just, I was just romanticizing about this, and the warm hue of the colours on the screen, and just I'm rambling, and I know this is a tangent, guys, and I'm sorry, but I absolutely loved it.
No, I think a lot of people share that sentiment. It's the fact of it's the joy of it. Like when I'm bad, I always watch like DS9 or whatnot. I always put DS9 on, or I put some like Star Wars on, or I put Buffy the Vampire Slayer on, and other gay shows. All these things that give you comfort because of the familiarity, but also like I don't know. There's something so wonderfully innocent about the time travel episodes in Trek. Like it's the fact of we always get something like this one, like with the Robin Hood one. Well, is that a holiday?
I am not a merry man.
Wait, it's a Q
holiday.
thing.
It's a Q
I don't know
thing,
if it's a holiday. It's a Q thing.
Yeah.
But even stuff like Fairhaven. I know we've already talked about it on the show, but stuff like Fairhaven, you're like going, there is this lovely.
I have an issue with Fairhaven. I have an issue with Fairhaven. Sorry, seventh tangent of the night, but I have an issue with Fairhaven. Not that it's bad. Not that it's well. No, I mean it's Janeway. Not that it's bad. It's just every time I have been to Universal, they don't mention that it's Fairhaven from Star Trek, and you go right through the centre because that set, the French/European set, is where they set the Good Life. So it's the same village. The same village. But I remember it as Fairhaven. I also remember it as the one where in Voyager where the Germans, the Hirogen do the.
Yeah. I'm going through my 80s stage at the minute. It's not a phase, Dad.
I am human and I need to be loved. I am a massive twat. But it's also. Oh, I do declare! Your hair!
Word.
Your hair!
I got my hair. I do declare I've lost my hair. Oh,
you need another Eclair. But it's also the holodeck episode where the Hirogen played the World War II thing as well.
I was gonna say that's the only thing that I recognize. I didn't recognize it in other episodes, and I certainly didn't know it was Universal Studios. But it was but it's the idea of going. I did recognize that it was Fairhaven was the French village that they had in the Hirogen episode.
Yeah. So but it's a nice nostalgic journey, and Paramount has its own like city backlot as well, which was featured in the original series and other things as well. But it's just watching this episode today, and really paying attention, and it just made me realize why I love Star Trek, and more to the point, why I love the Next Generation era of Star Trek, because it's a warm blanket that when you are at your lowest, Star Trek is there for you, and it just gives you that hope. It gives you that belief that things can get better. And what I love is when the scene where Mark Twain is on the Enterprise and Deanna's taking him around the Enterprise, and he's going on about his 19th century sensibilities, where it's like, oh, you're on this fancy ship traveling through the stars, and all these people are in your servitude, and I'm sure you're living the life of luxury, but other people are suffering. And she's just like, no, poverty was erased, hopelessness was erased. We do things for the betterment. We believe in hope. And you just like, they just take that, they just accept that, and they, that is the future that I want. And it made me feel better about things watching this today. But getting back to the episode.
The thing, we have a lot to discuss on this episode. We are like 30 minutes in now, but there's a lot to discuss about this episode, because obviously me and you were having a brief discussion about what the themes of this episode are. I think the first theme that we encounter in the episode is obviously this is way past Measure of a Man and whatnot. This is like where we've already had the conversation of, is Data human? What classifies someone as human? But in this case, we kind of see everyone's reactions and their relationships to Data, where upon finding the head, they all start acting weird around him, because effectively them finding his severed head that's now deactivated effectively just goes, Data dies. And for Data, he takes this in a really sort of logical way of going, oh, actually, I'm kind of happy that I die, because I was really worried about sort of, he uses his lack of mortality as proving how he's not human. So it proves that he's further away from what he wants to achieve, which is being human. Whereas, rather than basically going, hey, but you get to live forever, and he's like, well, it's not that what it's all cracked up to be. But then all the other characters reacting to him and going, yes, but we don't want you to die because we care about you like a person. And it kind of points out just how much everyone perceives him as a person, not an android.
It's the fact that he's considered his own mortality, and because he is an artificial being, essentially he could live forever. He could upgrade himself. He could do anything in the future and live forever. So for him to consider his mortality, it brings him closer to being a human, and it gives him that comfort that at some point it will happen. He at some point he is going to die, and he's never considered that before. And like you said, for everyone else, it's like, we don't want you to die. We don't want this to happen. And I think Data represents the reassurance. This is he's someone who wants to be human, but it's the reassurance that he doesn't age. He will not get ill, and essentially he is immortal. And Data finds that, but for Data that is a flaw, because in his journey to become human, the one thing that would hold him back from being truly human is immortality.
Yeah, but the way he deals with it is fascinating, because it's like that. It's a bit morbid.
My eyebrows are falling off.
Mine are starting to come off. The adhesive is falling out. But no, it's a rather morbid conversation myself and my brother had with my mum, because basically, like, my mum's attitude is like going like, I don't want to live forever, and she's got stuff where basically like the doctors are saying you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, and her attitude is very much kind of like, fuck it, I don't care if I die. And then me and my brother and family are just like going, well, we kind of do. And it's weird seeing it with these characters and being like, yes, like, do you have a responsibility to the people who care about you to sort of to fight against this? Because we see a wonderful scene with Picard, because we have very open emotions from Geordi and Riker and Troy. Yeah. But with Picard is more guarded with his emotions, but then he kind of has an outburst where he basically goes, hey, now that we know that Data is going to die, we're not going to send him on this dangerous mission in case this is how it happens. And Data's like, but I should be on that mission. Those are the rules. I should be doing that. And like Picard actually loses his rag. He's just like, this is not rational. Data's like, this is not rational. He's like, well, I'll be irrational then.
But he approaches it.
And it's wonderful seeing Picard rattled in that way because of his friend, who is technically artificial.
But Data does what Data does best and approaches it with cold logic, where he's going, look, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, it is going to happen. You cannot prevent it because it has already happened. So at some point, I am going to perish in the 19th century. So there is nothing that you can do to prevent that. And it is a terrifying. My eyebrows are just all over the place. It is a. I can't question mortality while sorting an eyebrow. There we go. But it is a. It's not a frightening thought. It's a terrifying thought, where it's just like, you can't prevent this. And people, everyone out there has considered their own mortality at some point, because we have all got an expiry date. There is no getting around it. We have all got an expiry date. And for Data, he doesn't see that as a flaw. He sees that as a positive. He sees that in a way that
it's part of being human. Mortality is part of being human, which he lacks. But I will say though, like, a lot of this gets bandied around as a metaphor, but it's the fact of, like, when Troy is explaining how Data describes friendship, I think I just want to quote because it's so lovely, which is that it's Data explains friendship as I experience certain sensory input patterns, my mental pathways become accustomed to them. The inputs are eventually anticipated and even missed when absent. And if we have to say that Data is the stand-in for an autistic person in Star Trek. Like
100%.
that idea of an outsider, that idea of someone who's like exists in society, finds their way in society, but doesn't read off the same sheet as other people, but then still finds their way to fit in and how to sort of get on with people. And I think there's something wonderful about that, and the fact of how warm everyone is around him, even though he is very different.
He is the symbol for neurodivergent people in Star Trek. People who don't, they are not neurotypical. They don't think like everyone else. And me and Mr. Twain here, and myself, Mr. Twain, we are both neurospicy individuals.
Neurospicy.
Neurospicy. Hang on.
Mr. Majika Tuft. There's an old reference for you. There you go.
We are neurospicy. So, we are used to thinking outside of the box, and we are used to having a rewired brain compared to everybody else. So when Data says that, it sort of resonates with us quite personally. And it is difficult. And I'm looking for new work and stuff. And going through the applications, they go, "Do you consider yourself to have a disability?" And I do now. It's been diagnosed, and I'm like, shit, yeah. And it's just it makes you realize that, like, yeah, you can fit in, but you don't think like most people. It can be very difficult for people to make friends and stuff, and how people process stuff. I mean, I'm very like, if I find it very difficult to read emotions. If someone is off, if they're having a bad day, I take it personally. Go, I've done something wrong, therefore they must hate me. It's like Synoiz messaged me earlier today. I think you already put one word or something like that. Or no, that was it. You said, "Oh, can we have a chat before the thing?" And I was like, "Yeah. I'm in trouble. I've done something wrong. He hates me."
See,
because that's how my brain works.
Well, when I was in CBT, is it CBT?
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Isn't that also what you call marijuana or something?
No, that's
CBD.
CBD, yeah.
Oh well, anyway, both
we are aware of the devil's reefer.
Well, maybe. But yeah, when I was doing that, like, the concept of mind reading was a big deal, where it was the idea of going, don't jump to conclusions that you don't have the facts for. But it's very difficult to get out of. Once you get into the habit of going, hey, I've seen this thing, I've jumped to this conclusion, and no one's going to talk me off that hill until I hear something more about it. So it's like, you see someone in the street and they kind of wave at you wave at them and they don't respond to you, and you go, why do they hate me? And you spend all day going, why do they hate me? And then they didn't have their glasses on, like they just they would pop into shops, they didn't put their glasses on, they didn't see you, they were in a rush, they were having a bad day, all these things. But then your mind goes, how do I make myself seem shit from this, and it's, and it's getting around that and realizing, I do not know that thing, why should I give weight to that belief? It's fiddly.
Getting back to the episode though, I want to talk about the whole setup of the Davidians, which is an alien race which was heavily explored in Star Trek Online, as well as, like, Star Trek Online is really good at picking up these, like, subspecies or one-time enemies and then fully exploring them. But why the 19th century America? If they wanted to exploit pandemics and plagues and stuff, you would have the Spanish flu, you would have had the bubonic plague. Why the 19th century San Francisco?
Well, we've got to think though. It's like there's probably bits in time. There's several factors where it's did they have limited resources to go and check? Like, did they not get to choose where they actually landed up? They just went, hey, we can make one gateway and it puts us wherever, and then that's what we have to make the best out of. Or was it that they have multiple? Because we can't assume that this little moon and all this stuff here is the only base they have. So we have to assume that maybe there's loads of them, and that's just what this particular one got scheduled. But where it just goes like, hey, there's another one where it's doing the Spanish flu. There's another one doing the Black Death.
Yeah,
there's another one doing, you know.
And this
They
could
just
have
got the
been-
one where it's like there's lots of people suffering in like early America. You know.
But this could have led to something truly great, I think, where this could have been like a mini enemy, like not a mini enemy, but like it could have been something that they'd be like, you know, when they communicate with that downed alien in San Francisco, where she's like, you know, we go through all of time. We do.
I
this
love how
through all of time. They could have set
unapologetically
it up.
antagonistic she is.
Yeah.
Like, I love that it's this idea of you kind of go like, oh, are they going to resolve, or like, because I forgot how the episode ended, and I genuinely thought it was going to be one of these like, oh, they're just trying to survive, we'll help them out some way, and we'll live in peace and harmony afterwards.
Yeah.
And instead, it's like her just being like, no, we're not going to stop. We genuinely need your energy, and so
think
they just kill them, and you're just like, oh, okay.
It would have been a great setup to go, hey, this is the new big baddie of the series. You can't see them. They don't have eyes, and they ingest human souls. Because let's be honest, right? Let's be honest.
It's a family show, everyone.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. They harvest neurological. Neuro energy.
Yeah, they said so. Hold on. I think it's neuroelectrical energy. Electrochemical energy.
Electrochemical energy, right? So essentially, for most people, like for the sciences and stuff, that's what they claim is the soul. So like it's that electrical energy in your brain, in your body, but it's that electrical energy that you know essentially gives you
once
life.
It's gone, it's gone.
Once it's gone, it's gone. Yeah. So when you die, you don't have that neuroelectrical energy. You are brain dead. So essentially, these are soul harvesting aliens with no remorse, cold, and use the plight of humanity's worst eras to harvest people. They could have done something truly remarkable with these aliens because they said they're not going to stop.
How many alien races in Trek, though, could you say that about? Like, I think the fact that these are only in one episode is kind of indicative of how good the writing on Trek is. The fact that it's going, yep, here's another one in the pile to make it really easy for people later on, like to give billions of things that other
never used.
And then obviously you get Discovery being like, oh God, we can't work in these constraints. Oh, it's so limiting.
Right.
Let's just make up our own stuff. And you're like, and then you have Lower Decks going, no, there's all these things to play with. Like where Lower Decks' struggle was basically like, how do we include all the stuff we want to include when we've only got a couple of seasons? Whereas Discovery was like, I don't know how to fit this with this, and oh fuck it, I'll just make.
But
my
imagine
own thing.
in Discovery, like the Klingon War.
It's writing.
Yeah, imagine if during the Klingon War that they encountered some Davidians harvesting the souls of the fallen soldiers. David's soul on Jagal could have been harvested by the Davidians. They could have done something with it.
You could have been consumed into a creature's facial orifice, forehead, there.
But enough about your Saturday nights. No, I do declare.
But I think though the fact that it doesn't really go back to these, because what we saw though, what you're suggesting is kind of what season 3 of Enterprise was, where it was like, what if we have this alien race who should be a 1 or 2 episode character,
the Alarchi,
and we make a massive arc out of them, and we got the Zindi.
The Zindi,
and
sorry, yeah.
I hate that. I genuinely go, like it's Bilbo, it's like too little butter spread over too much bread, where you go,
I think
actually,
so.
I kind of like us being sparing with alien races.
Yeah,
it would have been good to have more of them.
I don't mean like maybe just exploring in Next Generation. I mean like in the future. This is an untapped well that they could have explored. And then what I'm saying is like I paraphrase Enterprise when they had the Borg on Enterprise, where at the end of the two-parter, Archer finds out that the Borg sent a signal. And the signal was directed to the Delta Quadrant, but it won't reach them for 200 years, and then that leads into obviously the events of the next generation and stuff like that. They could have done something where that, you know, right at the end where they go, this is not the only planet. They are, you know, she could have said we are everywhere, we are all through time, and they could have just left it. They could have just left it as an open-ended book. But you know, for a lot of people it's like, oh well, the Davidians were just on this one planet and we torpedoed them, so that's the end of that chapter.
But you are kind of sitting there just being like, so what do we want to take away from this? That Riker just genocided a race, or that there are these guys hanging out in every corner of the universe, like ruining history?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
That's what I like, though. I like the idea of, like, because there's so much you could do with this, because they specifically work within the constraints of what's it called, temporal dynamics, you know, effectively, where they're going like, you know, the whole thing is you can't go into the past and change something because it'll mess up the future timeline. And so what they do specifically is they go, hey, we're going to find people who are going to die anyway. So we go around hospitals, we find people where they are destined to die, and then we just take their energy before they die. So, and you know, and it's that thing, and that way they kind of stay between the lines of history without sort of messing with temporal stuff. And that's fascinating, the fact of going, technically them existing isn't actually hurting anyone.
That's what I was going to pose to you. Like, do you think by eradicating the Davidians it would change human history?
I don't think it would. I don't think it would, because I think they were very selective. Like, because if it was just this thing where they were going back in time and they were just killing people, they were just without any thought whatsoever, they were killing people, that would massively mess everything up. But we see them carefully going round. The fact that the homeless man, because there's a scene where basically there's the homeless man that we meet earlier. Yeah, what is a 49er? That's is it an army thing?
1849. It's Gold Rush.
I was going to say, I thought it was a minor thing, but then I was like, oh, is it a veteran thing? But yeah,
I will that because the football team in San Francisco is the San Francisco 49ers.
And they live inside a mine, don't they?
Yeah, it's the Gold Rush of 1849.
But we see it where he knows them. He's seen them before, so it's obvious that they've been checking in on him. So they've obviously sort of been like going, hello, you're not long for this world kind of thing. I hope that cough doesn't get worse kind of thing. And then appearing in hospitals and checking around and being like, oh, this one's on the way out. Yeah. And I think there is a conscious effort not to actually disrupt the timeline from them. So, and it's a strange one. It's literally one of these weird things where we sit there being like, well, if we weren't doing anything with it, then I guess, you know...
They could have
unless we believe that there's more to it. Like if you're saying it is the soul, and that by, you know, eating them, effectively they're sort of messing up with someone's afterlife or something.
This is the thing. Like the way
these are what a novel or something could expand upon.
The way that Deanna, and this is what pissed me off about Star Trek Online, because they didn't explore this in Star Trek Online. But what gets me is when Deanna goes, when they first get down to Davidia 2, and she goes, there is a presence here. There is a child, there is a woman, and they are terrified and stuff like that. And you realise it's not the actual person, it's the neuroelectrical activity from the body that they have harvested. And it's like, it's the soul. Like, they are harvesting souls, bringing them here for those souls to be devoured. There is a very biblical, you know, religious theme going on with that. And it's just... I just wish they could have explored
about that, but it's terrifying.
Yeah,
it's terrifying.
I just wish they could have explored it.
I genuinely thought it was just Troy being like, "Can I say something other than he's hiding something?" You know,
yeah.
She was just like, "Can I have other lines in this?"
But it's terrifying because when they're harvesting, what it proves is, like, you know, because like I said, when the body dies, the neuroelectrical activity stops. That's it. You know, it is dead. What this episode proves in the Star Trek universe is that neuroelectrical activity is harvested from the body, but that activity is alive, basically, and they are scared. Like the activity, the for want of a better term, the soul of the person is fully aware of what's going on and is scared and is terrified, and that is so chilling when you think about it. That, you know, your body dies, your soul leaves the body, only for your soul to be completely and utterly devoured.
What do we reckon, people in the chat? Like, because I
Yeah,
haven't
what
thought
do we
about this
reckon?
way. Like, do you reckon that's actually pretty terrifying? Because yeah, I think the more I think about it,
It's horrifying. It really is. Because like when I rewatched this episode and because I knew what they were harvesting and stuff, but when I listened to Deanna in the first part where she goes, you know, there is a child here, there is a mother here, there is a woman here, and they are scared, they are terrified, and you're thinking, yeah, that's not the body of the person, that is the soul of the person that they have harvested, and that soul is about to be devoured.
Or it could just be echoes. It could be echoes of something else that kind of linger, because we don't really understand how Deanna's power works effectively. But the fact is, it's a great Trek episode because it leaves us wanting more. It gives us more to actually discuss with it. But to move on slightly with stuff, like one thing I was going to point out is one of the other themes, because we've talked about Data's relationship to death and friends and whatnot, and this humanization of Data. But the main point, I think, throughout this is the idea of fate being inescapable.
Yeah.
The idea of, like, because we get it in other... It's you know when you have time travel episodes, you either have two things. You either have one where fate is inescapable and that everything is serendipitous, where it's the idea of going, oh, no matter what you did, accidentally you caused that thing to happen. Like Back to the Future is very much like that. But then you have ones where it's like you can intentionally change things, or the wrong mistake messes up the entire timeline and stuff. And Trek kind of flip-flops between them, but I find that this one is a very serendipitous one, because what we have in the episode is obviously Picard is going, hey Data, you're not going on the away mission, you're not going down to that planet because it could be dangerous for you. And then basically they get to a situation on the planet of, oh, the only one who can actually investigate this and the only person who can actually sort of look into this is Data. So yep, he has to come down, and something goes wrong, and it ends up with him being transported back to the past on Earth. And it's all very confusing. But I do like, though, how confusing it is, because it literally has Data when he's investigating everything, and he's describing to people the things that they can't see, where he's describing these aliens, which is kind of scary, because obviously he mentions they've got 4 limbs, they're 2 to 3 meters tall, they're silver grey in color, they've got no eyes or ears, but they've got one giant orifice where their forehead is. And, you know, when we get to see them later on, but the idea of how chilling this description of them is, combined with Diana's, like, description of, you know, feeling terrified people. But then he describes that 2 people have come in. One has a bag thing, and one has, he says an ophioid? But, yeah, but effectively it's a snake. Yeah, an ophidian, there we go. I didn't know what one was, I had to Google it. But yeah, essentially, one of them has a snake, and you're like, what the hell? And then he gets transported to the past. And then what we see over time is that there's this pair of very suspicious rich people wandering around the city, and one of them has a cane with a snake on, and they're the aliens that are basically sort of stealing people's souls effectively before they die. It's really good. This is probably the closest we get to a Doctor Who type plot line, I think, in Trek.
It is,
because this is very much a Doctor Who villain, I think.
It's also the Davidians, like, they're an alien race where they almost act like a parasite. They don't do anything. Like, they are just essentially sitting round and just feeding. That's all they do. They are just draining the life force of everyone around them for the purpose of them just feeding. Like, we didn't see any Davidian society. We just saw a group of aliens just sat being fed. And that is the only thing. And for me as well, that is, with everything else, that is also like a scary thing. Like the enemy that, you know, there is no other purpose but I just need to eat.
Yeah, like gluttony, it's that idea of greed. There's probably a lot that you could read into in that, but I think it does help to make them like a frightening villain for this episode. It's coming off again.
Oh,
It's
they
not
do
staying
declare.
on. I'll do that. Hey, that looks weird when I do
Oh
that.
no, no!
Oh, yeah.
I do declare we do not do that. That will get us demonetized.
Yeah.
Let's.
I think though, yeah. So what we do though is we then go on to a very very good episode, which is mainly a data episode, and
Yeah.
it's basically him surviving in the past and him working out ways to do. So it has him speaking to various people and whatnot and getting their perspectives on life. And I love the fact that people just assume that he's a Frenchman. Because they go like, oh, he looks really strange and he talks really weird. He must be French, and it's just running gag throughout the episode that he just goes, of course, yes, I'm a French person. That's why I'm so weird, and everyone just accepts that.
I just wanted
but
my
he-
Claire.
But he does meet the vagrant, which is who we talked about earlier, and who has one of the best lines ever, which is "Steer clear of sailors, or you'll get a fisting." I've changed that slightly, but I found that to be my experience as well. But yeah. But then of course he meets the bellhop, who we find out in episode 2 is meant to be the famous Jack London. But and it's kind of key. The bellhop is such an interesting character. He might be my favorite character in there, even though there's Mark Twain and Mark Twain's amazing. The bellhop is just so. I didn't want to go into this yet, but like.
I do
in
declare
terms of-
you need to declare your debonair.
Well, in terms of like
the hair.
how I interpret the episode in terms of like metaphors and subtext and stuff like that, we kind of have two different Americas represented, where we have like the bellhop as a representation of America, as in that optimism, that kind of you can do anything, you've just got to work hard. You know, you've just got to work hard. Yeah, you know, the future is yours. You're
The entrepreneurship of the American dream.
He's waiting
Yeah.
for his. It's almost the you know, the Ayn Rand, the objectivism, the whole thing of going, yeah, if you have no rules upon you, then you just have, you know, you just work hard and you'll achieve anything, kind of thing. And we know that that's a bit. What's the word? Childish. What's it called? Sort of.
It's sort of, yeah, but
gullible.
data.
A bit, yeah.
But data is the symbol for Jack. Data is the symbol of the American dream. This dude who's just literally come off
Rocks
the
in.
boat, rocks in, has no money to his name, goes into a poker match, wins an absolute bundle, buys the best hat and waistcoat I have ever seen in Star Trek.
No, he doesn't buy it. He gets it. He wins
Oh,
it
he
off
gets
the
it, yeah, sorry.
Native
But
American
gets it,
guy.
and then, you know, it's got this, and then begins inventing. And you can see the idolization in Jack's eyes for Data, where he's just like, well, if you can literally do that in a day, you know, it has reignited my belief that my day's gonna come too, and I've
this
lived
is
all
it,
of these
though, but-
experiences.
And that's me being a cynic, but it's the fact of you see that dream of his is reignited by effectively a lie, because it's the fact of going, you know, he saw this, and it's this idea. That's what we have. We have so many people nowadays who are just slaves to, you know, the grind, effectively, where it's like, you know, like in America, where you just go, hey, you need to pay your rent. Oh, you need 3 jobs, and it's like, why not one? Why is one job not enough to get by in this situation? And it's like, oh, because you have the freedom to do better. And it's like, that seems like it's worse than, you know, other things. And but the fact is, because you have these success stories, because you have these TikTokers who can buy their own house at like 22 or whatever, who, you know, have all these, we have these superstars like, you know, Lady Gaga and
Madame Gaga.
Madame Gaga, or, you know, these people, and they shoot to stardom. Everyone's like, oh, I can achieve that. Oh, that's believable. That's what I want. And so Data is Jack London's thing of that. It's the kind of the getting a fresh carrot on the stick to kind of keep him going with it. But then the other thing is that Mark Twain is the other side of America. Mark Twain represents I kind of see him as representing America how a lot of people see it, where it's like he's antagonistic in some ways, even though he doesn't mean it. He's incredibly arrogant. He loves the sound of his own voice. He's constantly lecturing people and whatnot and going, hey, we know best, and whatnot. He's a pessimist. He always thinks the worst of any situation, where he's like, hey, other cultures, we've got to protect ourselves. We've got to think this. Like, his whole deal is aliens must be out to attack us, so we have to do something about it. But he's nosy. He has absolutely no respect for privacy whatsoever. And how can we say that that doesn't represent America with the whole, like, hey, maybe we should just be looking over the Middle East and maybe have people there just looking after interests and whatnot. But the main thing is he's a humanist. Below all of the negative stuff I've just said, he cares about humanity. He is all about the success of humanity, the continuation of humanity, and the protection of humanity. But almost to a fault. And it's that cold cynicism that he represents, contrasted with Jack London's optimism, that I think sums up the America that we're talking about in this episode.
There is a TikTok video that I saw today, ironically after I watched Times Arrow, and it is a couple filming in a European restaurant, and they are filming another American couple who are in the same restaurant. And essentially the video was, hey, Americans, this is how the rest of the world views you. And what they were basically saying is, like, in this European restaurant, and it's probably the same in a British restaurant, where everyone is very aware of everyone else. Everyone is aware of their surroundings. Everyone knows how to conduct themselves in a public space such as a restaurant. You talk with a low voice. You don't make a scene. You are very quiet. You don't talk about personal things out loud. And what they were saying is the contrast to this American couple in this European restaurant. They were loud, they were brash, they were talking about personal things, they were laughing loudly and stuff like that. And it was an American watching this video that the Europeans take, and he went, is this how the rest of the world views us? Is this what? If I looked at this video without the context that it was put in, I would say that this is just a normal day in an American restaurant. I didn't realize that how we conduct ourselves can be construed as being rude, loud, and brash and offensive to other cultures. He said, and coming from look, I've been to America loads of times. Synoiz has been with me to America. You sit in a restaurant, you sit in a cafe, and yeah, it is different. I've got pubes in my mouth. People are louder, people are more, they will talk about personal things more open, and they're just more out there when it comes to stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, but it's because they don't realize it, they don't reflect on how they conduct, because like this fella said on the TikTok that I just thought this was just normal behavior. And it's like, yeah, but you have to think culturally, you have to think the rest of the world acts in different ways in different countries. What might be acceptable in America is not acceptable in a restaurant in France, for example. And what we see with Mark Twain throughout the two-parter, he's very brash, and he's very, he's giving everybody a lecture. And I sum him up as a first-year psychology student, where they're just like, I've already had one class, but I pretty much know how the world works. And it's like, no, you don't know how the world works. You don't fully understand how it works. And what we see throughout the two-parter is, people are not out to attack America, and there's no enemies and stuff. And he's making assumptions without reading into the events and digesting the information that he's receiving.
Well, like you were saying about the TikTok video, what he's doing is he's thinking about things the only way he knows how to think about. He's not stopping and questioning, and it's almost like it can be taken as an allegory for like immigration or whatnot, where it's this idea of him going, there are strange people here, they must be wanting bad things, because that's how I would think of things. Like, and it's that thing of like, is he projecting? Is he going, hey, if I was in another country, I'd be trying to take it over, or if I was an alien, I'd be wanting to conquer things and whatnot. And yet, despite all the evidence, despite the fact that there's no evidence whatsoever, he applies his values to everyone else. And and it's the speech that Deanna gives him in the turbo lift at the end of the two-parter, effectively. Like, I'll read what he actually says, but it's that effectively, she gives him a speech, and then he retorts with this line. And it's him kind of realizing, oh, wow, actually, I never thought that we could do it differently. We just assumed that everyone thought like we did and therefore felt threatened by everyone, rather than realizing, whoa, multiculturalism is learning that everyone's different, but learning that there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, so, because he basically says, like, I come from a time, I can't do the voice, but it's like, I come from a time when men achieve power and wealth by standing on the backs of the poor, where prejudice and intolerance are commonplace and power is an end unto itself. And you're telling me that that isn't how it is anymore? And it's that idea of, when you come from a time like that, when you've come from the wars, when you've come from a time of hardship, and you just get dumped like, oh yeah, here's people existing without any of those kind of worries, then you would be suspicious.
It's time and place when you think about it.
Yeah, but that's why I see him as an allegory for America. Like, I see him as a stand-in for how the world perceives America, because he's a likable character, he's a memorable character, he's antagonistic, but not really. Like, he's not the villain of the piece, but there's bits where you just like, oh, you stop messing around, stop being involved in this kind of thing. And because we don't know his intentions. He's positive, his intentions are good, but that isn't necessarily what's good for our main characters. And him being an absolute twat in terms of sort of being so nosy, and it's the power he has, though. Like, it's genuinely scary, and I didn't realize until the recent rewatching, I didn't realize how much power he has, where he knows Data's every move. He is following Data around the entire city. He is speaking to people and being like, hey, keep tabs on this person. So he knows everywhere Data has been, everything Data has said to anyone, the names of everyone he's spoken to, and he can even get access to his apartment and stuff. And you're just going, the power that Mark Twain has, and yet still there's this insecurity. And it's like the power that America has in the world, or on the world stage, and yet, as we're seeing at the moment, it's shooting itself in the head for the sake of more security,
It is a poignant allegory for America at the moment, where it's like, everyone's out to get me, and it's just like, not everyone is out to get you.
They are now.
They are now.
They are now that you start acting like this. It's like
dystopian prophet wants to know, where up north in the UK are you too? Well, Synoiz right there is further north than yours truly.
I live in Sunderland. You live in a filthy little backwater hovel, don't you? It's like the bins outside Lidl, I think.
Yeah, we'll just say that. We'll just go with that.
But your previous question, dystopian prophet, what the chances are that Guinan is in the same city? Somehow she knew what was going on and arrived to observe. I don't know. I think this is the thing. It's like, like I was saying about time travel, is this serendipitous time travel where it's like, actually she just happened to be there, like it just, and obviously it's a big coincidence. Hey, you're from Manchester. Amazing. Yeah, there we go. I was just there the other week, actually. That's why we didn't have an episode, because I was literally in Manchester, and I was like, can I do this on a laptop on my mate's sofa? Maybe not.
Why not?
But like, I think Guinan being there, it's an interesting one. I like her being in it. I like them involving Whoopi Goldberg more in the show, but at the same time, I don't think there was any foreshadowing to this, whereas there could have been if they'd intended. And
it was too coincidental.
It is very strange, but it's the idea. But I do like, though, that we get a bit of discussion on her, where she basically, when she finally meets Data, and Data basically barges in. It's hilarious. He barges into the party that she's throwing after seeing her face in the newspaper, and just goes like, okay, I need to speak to Madame Guinan. And the guy's like, you're not on the list, you can't come in. He's like, oh, okay. And this guy's like, if you don't leave, I'll have to call the police. And he's like, you should do that. I'll wait through there. And the guy's like, no, that is not how this works. But he barges in, and then foolishly mentions the idea of a starship, while Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, is standing there, and then Guinan suddenly goes, "Oh, I know who you are," even though she doesn't.
Do you think that was a flaw
But
for Data
she
to
does
do
have
that?
the line. I think it's a massive flaw for her to do that because it sets off Mark Twain. Like it's it's the worst possible place he could have said it, like in the worst possible company. But Guinan says a line of, "What is it? Did my father send you? I'm not done yet."
Yeah.
And he just like, "What?" And he cuts her off, and you're just going, What is this? Is this like her before college, like her sort of like going
Gap year.
Yeah, is this Guinan's gap year where she's somehow, because aren't they from the Delta Quadrant?
The Ilorians?
Yeah,
No,
the
the from well, I don't know actually.
Because that's the problem though, because it's literally we just said there that the Borg were in the Delta Quadrant. They didn't come through the Alpha Quadrant until the message in Enterprise, and Q's warning. So it's like the idea
Gap
of going.
century,
So did Guinan just travel to the Delta Quadrant and then, from the Delta Quadrant and then back again after like 200? This is the thing. This is why the episode is a bit like you cause too many problems. You cause way too many problems in the timeline.
You open up so many avenues of exploration. Yeah. You open up so many avenues of exploration and then do absolutely nothing with it. And then 30 years later, with Star Trek Picard, you have even more reason and opportunity to explore this, and you do nothing with it. And they remain one of the most mysterious alien races in Star Trek.
Well, it's also the idea of like when we get Picard season 2, has the whole like, hey, how does Guinan progress? What does she do? Does she like immediately after this? Does she head home and that explains how she gets up? Nope, she's still working in the bar in the 20th century. She's just decided to open a bar now. Yeah. And then you're like, so when does she go back home in order to be involved in the war, in order to escape and be attacked by the Borg?
Yeah, when does she go home?
To happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when does she go
and that's
home?
The thing. And you're sitting there being like,
back?
you could have fixed this. You could have explained all of this, but instead, it's I don't know. It's the fact of Guinan is a character who I really want more on because I think they're absolutely fascinating. But then every time they involve her, they just go,
Generation
Goldberg.
Dystopian Prophet says Generations makes it appear that Guinan's race is close-ish to the Federation, but if that's the case, Dystopian, why did it then take the Borg 70 more years to reach?
They just retreated. They were like, actually,
let's
go back.
This is
no,
the
how
problem.
about what the Borg left the oven on? Okay, so basically the Borg, they set out, they attack the Ilorians and stuff, all of that stuff happens, and then Borg Queen's just like, dive the oven.
No,
and then they immediately retreat back to the Delta Quadrant.
The Borg strike me as air fryer owners. They are very elitist.
That's
very up their own
That's going to have
cube.
a beep thing on it. That's going to have an auto shutdown.
Not only an air fryer, a double tray air fryer. Not only do they do the tendies, they do the chippies as well at the same time. They're very up their own cube, I think, the Borg, when it comes to that. Definitely not oven users.
When technology goes too far. That's basically what we're talking about here. We're talking about sort of,
I really want a Borg
maybe they
air
are
fryer
the perfect race.
We need a Borg air fryer.
Double air fryer.
How has no one made Borg air fryer merchandise yet? I don't know. Right?
But like I say, it's like it's not a major thing, but it does kind of. This is one of these episodes where it's like, yay, Guinan. Oh, we didn't do anything with her. Okay, again, yay.
But the other,
they do. She is interesting in this, and I quite like it. But it does feel very much like. And it doesn't affect anything. So it goes from being a potentially character-building episode to a bottle episode where none of it is relevant to anyone as we go on.
The other thing as well is, and I know we're leaping between different sections of the episodes, but Picard, when they've all returned to the 24th century and Picard's left behind with Guinan, and Data's head is there. And Geordie's trying to reassemble Data with the 500-year-old head, right there in that picture there. And he's going, there's an iron filing here. What does this mean?
Don't get me started on...
Why did Picard... how did
bullshit.
Picard know to put that specific message in there, and do you know what I mean? And
This is the problem. This is what I mean. Like, if
Write
you notice,
it down.
all the stuff that I've talked about, all the stuff that I've like talked about and praised, has been episode 1 stuff.
Right.
Like all the, and then the problem with episode 2, I feel we need to sort of move on to. Like, what we'll do.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk about episode. Anything else we've got to say about episode 1?
I don't think so. I think out of this, it's a damn perfect.
I will say the 2 things I want to say is, this is purely a selfish thing, but the bellhop, the guy who plays Jack London, is way too gorgeous to just be in 1 episode. Effectively, he's in the sliding thing. I was watching it and I just found myself. I don't know if you get this, but where you just watch it and you just hanging on every word because you just like they are so charismatic. And it's only them and the amazing Akano.
I think
that have done that, but he's so lovely. Like, he's so lovely as a character, and I love his excitement and his optimism, and he's the America that we want. He's the America that we go, yeah, that's how we want to be remembered, whereas Twain is kind of the America we remember. There he is. That's talk about the worst picture you could have taken.
It's Michael Aaron. 56 years old, so he was fairly young when this. He was early 20s when this was airing. He was Jack London in Star Trek.
I say, Mr. Goodwill, I believe I will Google his particular peripherals in my own time.
But what I was about to say, if you shut your damn mouth,
if I can stick an adhesive upon it like this mustache.
One of the interesting facts about Michael Aaron, though, is his brother was the visual effects artist for Star Trek Generations. So it is a family affair.
Family affair.
Family affair.
I do love a group.
But, what are you doing, step time traveler?
But yeah, I love the scenes of him. I love the fact of like Data's approach to money is hilarious because Data goes, okay, here's a list of things I need, and it's all bizarre science stuff, all like things. And then the guy's like, and then Bellhop's like, how am I going to afford all this? And he's like, oh, okay, this should do it. And then he just takes out this massive wad of cash, and we see how excited Jack gets about being handed a single dollar. And then he effectively gets given like $1 million here by Data, just being like, here you go. But the fact that like Jack is so honest that he actually does do it. He doesn't just run off and seek his fortune and abandon Data. He goes off, runs all these errands, gets all this equipment and stuff. And that's what I mean. He is the perfect America. He's the how we want America to be. This honesty, this sort of
entrepreneurial ship spirit.
Yeah, it's hilarious because he kind of is like a character from a Mark Twain like novel.
Yeah.
Like he's got that kind of spunk and grit and stuff, and you're like,
oh my.
There's something joyful about that. But then, the other thing I want to mention is simply the first time that we're introduced to Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, where he's at Guinan's like, what is it? It's like a book club. It's like a literacy.
It's
club for people who can read, basically.
It's there used to be a name for them. The name escapes me, but it's like it's like a meeting of minds, shall we say?
Yeah, but it's fascinating what he has to say, and it demonstrates his cynicism, where it's this, and it is, and I found myself playing with this idea a lot, like after watching the first episode, about because he's basically complaining about like if there is life on other planets. Like, if we're not the only planet in the world in the galaxy that can sustain life, and there are other planets, does that diminish what humanity is? Does it diminish the specialness and the uniqueness of humanity if we just see it as numbers? If we just go, hey, this oyster took 2 million, millions of years to perfect, but it's here now, kind of thing. But there might be other oysters in other places. And then Guinan counters with the idea of going, yeah, but a diamond is still a diamond, regardless of how many diamonds you have. And it kind of gets us into this world of going, what is special? Is he, like, how you get art? Where you, like, so for instance, for me, I've got this on my table, like this little Executor plushie that I got from the Pokemon store, okay? This is mass produced but I love it. It has so much value to me. Even though anyone can buy one for like £9, it doesn't lose its value because it's mass produced. It's just a special thing that means something to me.
Yeah.
Whereas we have art collectors where they're like, hey, I need to own this because it's the only one. I need to own this because then someone else can't, or that I'm preserving something that's totally unique and special. And you're kind of sitting there, but like, but they're both special. It's, yeah, I just found it. The problem is I would have been a fucking nightmare at these kind of clubs if we still had them these days, because it's a fascinating discussion that they have.
So, let's move on to part 2, which is arguably the weakest of the two-parter. Yeah, I had problems with this. I did have problems with this. The lack of Jack London, for one.
Yeah.
In this,
he was a great character.
He was a brilliant character, and just the lack. I mean, it starts off strong. I mean, don't get me wrong. It starts off strong. We have got the next gen crew in 19th century San Francisco. We've got the landlord, Mr. Pickard, Pickard, and saying that they're all playwrights and they're putting on a play and they can't afford the rent, blah 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 blah. And it starts off well, but it just peters out, and we get back into the more sci-fi. We're all on the Enterprise now, and we've got Mark Twain here, and it
that
feels
is a small bit of the episode though.
I know, but it feels weaker. It just feels. It's really hard to get my words out about this, but it's just not as good as the first episode, and I think that it just, I don't know, the payoff for the cliffhanger is not there for me.
Yeah, I'd say it's very weak as an episode, but I'm gonna take the edge off a little bit, because I think it's the crew that messes it up. I think the shoehorning the whole crew into it
was not needed.
Makes them trip over. It's not needed. The first episode is like great because you're like, hey, it's Data. They're doing some stuff on the ship, but it's not really major kind of thing. Like they're in occasional scenes, but it's mainly about Data and these wonderful new characters it's introduced, like Guinan, Mark Twain, and Jack London. And then in the second episode, it doesn't quite know what to do with the Enterprise crew. It shouldn't have sent all of them, but obviously the writers were like, they've got to have a paycheck, so we've kind of got to have Crusher there, and we've kind of got to have Diana there, and it just they fall over themselves, and their scenes. When I saw it, when it came on, I was like, that's why you're in the fucking Dabo Wheel of Shame, and it's the scene you just mentioned with the fucking landlady. I hate it. I loathe these scenes where she comes in and she's like, hello, I'm an Irish person in Star Trek, because Americans seem to love stereotypical Irish people. I don't know why. It's just a thing. And I kind of find it a little bit offensive, but it's also the idea of just like, I'm going to be mean, okay? I'm going to be really, really mean. I don't think Patrick Stewart is made for comedy. And all of the scenes that have him in where they're kind of meant to have a comedic payoff, which are these scenes where they're pretending to put a play on. And he's doing it very much in that Royal Shakespeare Company kind of like, oh, this is how you do comedy. You say comedy this way. And here's my other controversial...
I think, just to counter that, I think at the time, Patrick Stewart was not made for comedy. Nowadays,
he's
hilarious.
American Dad,
American Dad, Ted, Million, whatever. He is hilarious. But at the time, we had comedic moments with Jean-Luc, with Loxana Troy, yada yada yada, the Captain's Holiday and stuff like that.
But he wasn't the comedy in that. He was the straight man in those scenes.
Yeah,
where
he was the
terrible
man.
Stuff was happening to him, and he was like, I hate this. And that's what made it funny. Whereas in this one, he's the one being comedic, or trying to be comedic. But this is not comedy.
This is not comedy. Like, the landlord goes, oh, I fell for you people with silver tongues before. And I'm like, he doesn't really have a silver tongue. He's very just direct and formal with you. That's not being silver tongued. Silver tongued would be smiles and charm and
But that is kind of what he's like, where he's lying, he's making it up as he goes along, kind of thing, and she's basically going, I know that you're lying, basically. And then the second scene where where she does this terrible reading, and he's like, I think we found our Titania, and you're just like, and this is the thing. This is something I realized, the other week, and this will probably upset some people, but don't really care. I realized I actually kind of hate Shakespeare, because I saw a play, and I know I can't say that because it's Pride Month and obviously famous gay and stuff, but it's the idea of Shakespeare. I saw a play and I was like, what would make this really good if they updated the language, if they made it where they all spoke in a realistic way and still had the same plot and the same folly and stuff, and everyone's like, that's literally destroying the concept of a Shakespeare play. And I'm kind of going like, okay, maybe this isn't for me, Yeah. It was literally like going, this is a really funny scene, but it's let down by being caught in this quagmire of language that everyone worships, and he's sitting there being like, that language doesn't come across as well as it could.
It's a language it's a language from 500 years ago that has obviously, our language has evolved from half a millennia. Yeah. Look,
we need to be worshipping the joy of Shakespeare in terms of the situation, the
not
plot,
the language,
the characterization and stuff, not the details of it.
Yeah.
And I think if we can kind of be progressive enough to be like, finally, we've got a black man playing Othello, then we can go, how about we, like even Romeo and Juliet in the 90s, where they made that sort of the live action version of Romeo and Juliet, and they made it modern, but then they kept the language the same. You're sitting there like, but anyway, let's
not talk about Baz Luhrmann. But it's it's
the fact of like Picard comes across going like the whole, hey, I'm playing this scene as an actor, like not as the, he feels like he's doing this as an actor, like they would do a folly scene in Shakespeare, and maybe that's the intention. It probably is, but yeah, I fucking hate it.
The other thing as well is Guinan and Data know that Mark Twain is onto them, and then the scene in the hotel room where Mark Twain has been, he's been snooping around and he takes the component out of the device, and they discover him in the wardrobe. Look, for me, Data really dropped the ball in Times Arrow when he first met Guinan, and he was like, "Oh, we were on a starship," and he's like, "You are an android. You need to have peripheral understanding that you are in 19th century America. No one knows what a starship is, and you are quite literally surrounded by people not from your time, and you have just uttered the word starship. For an android to make that mistake."
Yeah. I think the thing is, though, it's like it's another thing that humanizes him. It's the fact of, if it was anyone else at that party, if it was anyone else, if it was the butler guy, if it was one of the other guests, it wouldn't have been a problem. The whole point is that Data doesn't realize how curious Mark Twain is. He doesn't realize that, that's the problem. The problem isn't necessarily what he said, because I think that's the only thing he could have said that would have convinced Guinan to do that. But the fact that it's Mark Twain there is the bit that messes everyone up.
I just had difficulties with the interaction between Guinan, Data, and Twain within that hotel room. And for me, I would have been like, he's extremely curious. He's extremely, he's seen these futuristic devices. He's overheard us talking about things like this. Maybe at that point, just come clean.
Wait, I think this is the thing, though. It's like, this is where the allegory for America, comes into play. Because you genuinely have it where, like, they both know everything. So it is a bit weird why Data's going, why is Data still lying to him when he obviously knows what's going on?
Exactly.
He's not going to change his opinion. But I think Data's like, hey, these are the rules that we have to follow, the temporal prime directive and whatnot. But I will say, though, that scene has something. Like, I'm complaining about the landlord scenes not having any, like, good jokes in them. But one of my favorite things I say is that when Mark Twain's hiding in the cupboard, Data basically is like, oh, this component is missing. That could be really, really severely dangerous to someone if it comes into contact with skin for a long time. And then you immediately hear this sound, and you just know for a fact that Mark Twain's holding it in his hands in the wardrobe, hears that and immediately just lets go of it and drops it. And it's unseen, but that's exactly what's happened,
Yeah.
And then when they open the wardrobe, it's on the floor and it pans up his legs and he's like, oh, hello.
Yeah.
And I had one of the best lines ever. I think it's in the previous one, but it's like, eavesdropping is by no means a proper activity for a gentleman. Nonetheless, the deed is done. Which is the ultimate way of going, well, fuck it,
Yeah, and it just lends credence to the fact that really you shouldn't have maintained this charade for so long. You should have just come clean.
I think it is. It's them trying to convince Mark Twain otherwise, but it's
knowing
a
that he's that
curious,
but knowing that he's that curious, knowing that he's that insatiable to find out what's going on, I would have just come clean at that point, because otherwise, like we see, he would just keep going, and that's what leads him to get to the 24th century.
But this is the thing, though. It's the fact of what would have the repercussions of that been? Because the fact is, even though he's certain, because this is the thing. One of the things I wrote down is that basically, like with America nowadays, where it's the idea of, if these people are such a threat, why is there not more danger going on? So you're just kind of going like, hey, if Data and Guinan are evil aliens that are coming to conquer Earth, why are you not dead? How do they have this gentlemanly sort of him going, aha, I'm just going to step out the room, but I'll get you next time, Gadget, which is effectively what Mark Twain does. And it's like, if they really were a threat, they would literally just kill you. The same way that you're just going, oh, we've got to protect our borders because there's all these things happening. You're just like, why are there not way more horrible things happening? Because it's not as if they're hard. It's not as if, we're magically better. We are better at protecting nowadays, but it's not like if someone had the intent to do bad stuff, they'd be able to stop them particularly well. It's just more the idea of going, they're not actually as common as we want to believe that they are, in order to justify security measures, which is, Mark Twain going oh, well, I'll step out now, but I'll get you eventually. And I think that if Data was honest and kind of came clean and said, yep, we're aliens, I'm an android, she's an Elorian, all that, he would still go to the reporter guy. He would still go to the reporter guy and go right, we've got to get to the bottom of this, we've got to expose them, and we've got to get on front page news and everything. So I think it keeps him, and we see him speaking to the reporter where he basically goes, oh, well, I'll come back to you when I have more information. Whereas if he already had that information, he'd probably be putting things ahead quicker, I don't know. A lot of stuff it happens for the plot.
let's talk about Picard and Guinan's relationship when they meet. I want to know your thoughts on this, because again, it feels like a letdown for me. Because we know in part 1 where she's like, if you don't go in this away mission, we may never meet, or something like that. And we get we get that they meet in the 1890s or whatever, and it just feels like a letdown. It just feels like there could have been something more there, or it was leading to something more, and there was no payoff for this whole thing.
Well, it's one of these things of were they expecting to do more Guinan stuff, and then they just didn't? Because
I don't know.
We get two conflicting things, because we get it where basically Guinan says we're much more than friends, and you're like, does that mean besties, or is he hinting at some kind of romantic relationship that we've absolutely not seen anything for?
The thing is, there has been beta lore putting books out there about how Guinan and Picard met and when he was on the Stargazer and stuff like that, yada yada yada. But again, even as Star Trek Picard, this is stuff that has just never ever been explored. And you know, you could allude to this, right? There's nothing wrong to alluding to something and then just not exploring it. But when you allude again and again and again and again, and then you do nothing with it, it frustrates people, because it's like, right, okay, so what's the origin story behind this friendship? How did these two actually meet? Tell us. You've had 30 years.
This was the whole episode. The whole premise of the episode is this is how they first met.
He had to go to do this.
And then it ends with basically, it starts with Guinan being like, ha ha ha, you thought that was the first time we met? Well, actually, you've got to go back in time, because otherwise we might never meet. But then you're like, but is that just a lie? Like, and this is the weird thing when it comes to time travel, where it's the fact of Guinan says that. She goes, hey, Picard, you have to go on this away mission, because if you don't, we'll never meet. But then it never makes a connection between...
It never explains why.
It never goes, oh, because we can assume that maybe the reason why they meet on the Stargazer is because Guinan deliberately goes to the Stargazer in order to see Picard again. But that is never mentioned anywhere.
Yeah,
like, you know,
it could have just
that would
been...
make sense. And it's like, hey, if we hadn't met in the past, I wouldn't have thought about you in order to go to the Stargazer at that particular time.
It didn't have to be a big episode or anything like that. It could have just been, it could have been it could have been a throwaway line or something like that. Maybe in the first episode when she goes, do you remember the first time we met? And he could have just said, yes, it was when I was on the Stargazer and you did this, blah 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 blah. And she goes, nope.
Actually, that's not really true. You know?
Yeah, she could have done that. That tiny little bit of script, right? Could have shoehorned in, done. It would have sorted out the origin story of Picard and Guinan. And in 30
it would
years,
have just
we still
needed
haven't got
something. It would have needed something of like going, remember that time when I sort of helped you when, you know, I called for help while you were on the Stargazer and stuff like that? I reached out to you because we'd met in the past and I knew that, you know, we were going to... But it doesn't.
Thank you.
But then the frustrating thing is that we have that where Guinan is influencing the future by going, hey, you need to do this thing that you weren't actually going to do in order for things to happen the way they're meant to happen. Okay? Because if she hadn't have done that, it wouldn't have worked out that way. But then in the second episode, after all's said and done, she's talking to Riker, and Riker's going, hey, so how about this and stuff? And like, you know, oh, well, what should I do and stuff? And Guinan's like, can't influence anything. I can't tell you what to do because it'll influence the future. And you're like, hang the fuck on, mate. You know,
right.
It's like,
these
are...
It's
so
both
contradictory.
parts,
it's like a totally different approach to it, you know?
Yeah, it's so contradictory that they pick and choose. Like, she is able to pick and choose what she, you know, what she can and can't tell or do or anything like that. And even Riker goes, well, what was if you not telling me has that effect on the future, changes it? And it's like, he's kind of got a point. Like, you told Picard...
In for a penny, in for a pound, really.
You told Picard, go on this away mission, otherwise we won't meet. Why? Oh, I'm not going to tell you. Riker comes up, Guinan, what do I need to do? You were in the past. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you.
It's like, we'll just let this weird series of coincidences where Geordi finds an iron filing in the back of Data's head because there's a thing. And then, now, I just want to point this out to me. This is, the iron filing bit is the biggest bit of Doctor Who bullshit I've ever seen in Trek. Because I don't know if you are familiar with binary and how to represent letters as binary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what kind of brain capacity you would need to have in order to program a message as long as it seems that Picard's message is, where it's talking about different possibilities and different waveforms and stuff like that. In binary, using an iron filing, like, what if you fuck it up? Like, what if you get halfway through and you make a spelling mistake or something? Because he hasn't written it down. He's in a cave. He's thinking about it in the top of his head, being like, hey, what's L in binary? Oh, okay, cool. Let's do that without messing it up. And he's sitting there being like, just put a fucking note in his head. Get a bit of paper. Write it down. Like,
Thank you.
But then Worf has the weirdest thing, which is Worf is just like, oh, we could have all died in that cave and our bones would be dust by now. And I'm like, it's 400 years, mate. That's the, you know, like, the bones last longer than that. You know, it's like
that's where the episode fell apart for me. It really did fall apart for me because it's just like, oh well, you know, I've got this iron filing right in this key component and data. This singular iron filing is in a specific location in Data's skull that prevents Geordi from turning on Data, and Geordi has to manually go through everything, find this iron filing, and then
did
discovers.
Picard know how Data's head worked enough?
Yeah, yeah.
And
so
Geordi maybe would know that. Picard isn't Janeway. Picard's not an actual hey, actually, my background's a science officer, so I could actually
He's
run
an
the ship if I wanted
archaeologist.
to. Yeah, Picard's like, hello, I'm a sort of what's his main thing? It's like diplomacy and archaeology and stuff. So the idea that he just happens to know how Data. That's the problem. It's the fact that the first episode is such good writing. The second episode is like, did the intern get moved onto this?
You
for a
could have
season
literally
opener,
gone. You could have literally opened one of Data's flaps, giggity, right?
Ooh.
Had a bit of paper, put that in the flap, close the flap, and then when Geordi's doing his diagnostics, they find the bit of paper.
I mean, maybe paper wouldn't have survived that long, but maybe closed in Data's head it would have done. Or I don't know, maybe it could have scribbled on a stone or something and put it
Right?
I don't know. It's just that idea of it just seems a bit like, even if
Voyager
you gave me
science.
all the time in the world to go, hey, program a binary message into this weird bit of technology, I would not be able to do that. But,
so they return back to the 24th century.
no.
So Mark Twain,
What they do is there is the subplot of the crew in episode 2 is basically they're going around all these hospitals trying to find the aliens, trying to sort of track down these aliens that are obviously sucking up souls and stuff from people. So they're doing it using the tricorders, and they single it to this hospital. Crusher is in there sort of pretending she knows not to kill people. Oh no, it's brilliant. What's that whole scene with her? I wrote it down because it was literally she's literally she's in the morgue, and then she's going, hey, this body's depleted of electrochemical energy and stuff, but then
we can't find a pulse.
It has her in the worst costume ever, as in this massive, she's dressed as a nurse, she's got massive ginger wig on and stuff like that. And then there's this guy coughing in the bed, and she just mixes some chemicals and gives it to him and says, he just goes, oh, this will make you more comfortable, and then we never see him again. So did she just euthanize someone? I don't know. She's just like, oh, well, Ogawa's not here. Hopefully this will do the trick.
Oh my god, she shipmaned him.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Crusher Shipman, that guy. But either way, the aliens come in. They've got the snake staff, and we basically get to see them about to sort of end one of the dying people in the hospital. And then Riker and everyone break in. There's a fight. They manage to take the cane off the alien, and then the aliens vanish. And then there's a silly bit where a policeman comes in and notices that Riker's not really a policeman, and then they have to knock him out and run away. And then Data somehow is pulling a carriage. He's pulling a carriage. All he knew from his device was that there was some kind of tricorder reading or something in the city. And therefore, he detected, oh, that's where the rest of the crew are. But then for some reason, he knew to show up in a horse-drawn carriage fast enough, tell them all to get inside because he knew that they were being chased somehow. And then, it's just action movie bullshit, basically.
Come with me if you want to live.
Yeah, and then after that, they have the cane. We get the terribly play scene where they're all pretending to read a play, and you're sitting there like, what? Why are we doing this? Data is right there. Data has more money than God at this point. And then instead he's like, let's just trick this woman into thinking that she can join our play and not pay the actual rent, rather than actually just going, oh yeah, here's $1,000. There we go, fuck off. But instead they keep tricking her. And then I'm glad that they cleared it up at the end, because I remember that I didn't remember that this happened, and I got annoyed by it when I saw it. That basically they just leave this poor landlady just kind of hanging. But then they do say to Twain at the end, oh yeah, by the way, go and pay this woman's rent. And you're like, okay, cool.
You go sort our bill.
Data could have just done it. Data, unless he'd given all of his money away, but then Data wouldn't be that foolish. He would keep a bit because he'd obviously changed his clothes and stuff. either way, it's the fact of there's so many scenes in this that happen because it's a cool thing rather than because it would be a natural flow. And the first episode is a lot of natural flow and everything feeling right. This one is, we need some set pieces. The trailer for the episode needs Data pulling around the corner on a horse-drawn carriage. We need some kind of fight thing. Oh, we need this, that, and the other. And you're just sitting there like, ugh.
So, Trekkin.com at the moment is currently in the process of uploading episode trailers, the classic episode trailers, so Next Gen, DS9 and everything like that. It would be very interesting to see the season 6 TV trailer that they had.
It's all going to be the stuff we're complaining about.
It is. It's good.
I wouldn't be surprised if the trailer literally has them being like, we're putting on a play, and she's like, oh, I'm Irish.
The horse-drawn carriage.
That's in there, the horse-drawn carriage pulling in.
They've been blown back in the cave when the portal opens and stuff like that.
All the stuff that I class as unnecessary, I think, is the stuff that they put in to go, oh, we've got to keep people watching. Let's have exciting stuff.
I do think it was the weakest season opening of Star Trek, if I'm perfectly honest. I mean, time travel episodes, yeah. If this was a mid-season 2-hour special, yeah, absolutely, it would be fine. This was a season finale and a season opener. Season finale, great. Season opener, very weak. There's a lot of things that were just done for set pieces, plot devices, or just to move the plot forward. When you rewatch it, you go, like Synoiz said with Data, why didn't Data just pay the landlord? He clearly had thousands and thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars.
Why didn't he just there? It would make sense.
Why did Data turn up on a horse-drawn
He's
carriage?
specifically there. He even learns lines to do a bit of the acting. He even has him being like putting on a silly voice and pretending to be Puck, I think it is. And then he just sort of sitting there being like, he could just pay her. He'd just be like, there you go. He has more money than God. There you go. Although then again, maybe that would affect the timeline.
No, if he just paid the bill. Like, what they could have done, she could have barged in, Mr. Pickard, you owe me X amount of dollars. And he would have been like, allow me. And then he opened a waistcoat, pulled out a massive wad, and then was like, da-da-da-da-da. And then Riker could have been like, how did you get all that money? And Daisy just goes, poker. And Riker's just like, I'm keeping an eye on you when we get back. Do you know what I mean? Like, something like that as a reference to the fact that, like...
Then again, though, to swerve on it slightly, what if it was destined that she wasn't to get paid? Or what if it was destined that she needs to get paid by Mark Twain for some reason? Maybe what if that turns out to be Mark Twain's future wife or something like that, and that's how they meet her? And it's a weird one, but you would kind of go like, these are the things that, like we're saying with the Guinan thing and the Stargazer, these are what would be better and would demonstrate better writing if it kind of went, we knew you were going to go there. Like we see it with Strange New Worlds, where we see the writing is so good there that it has we saw where you were going, we saw where your mind, we led your mind there, and so we did this thing. And you're like, this is good writing. But with this one, it's like they could have put something in there saying, oh yeah, that's how... that landlady was actually Mark Twain's future wife. I've forgotten what Mark Twain's wife was, but he met her pretty late. He literally met her like
they had 3 kids.
70. He was probably 50 or 60.
They had 3 kids.
I don't know that much about Mark Twain, if I'm perfectly honest. Like his history.
I do declare, I'm right here.
I'm dressed as him. But yeah, maybe. But the fact is, if there is something like that, if you could justify it that way, good writing would push you towards it, I think. Would hint towards that rather than us needing to justify it with that. But and then the rest of the episode is that we have that where basically they get the cane off the aliens, they go back to the cave. I don't know why they specifically go to that cave. Is it because of the readings?
The resonance from the cave sort of amplifies it amplifies the portal, essentially.
This wig is getting really itchy. I'm not used to having hair.
So's this moustache.
Yeah, they get. At least yours is still on, but 2 hours and it's still on. But yeah,
They
yeah.
look like
so
an
what-
elder scouse.
the elder scout. No, calm
Hey!
down, calm down.
Calm
hey.
down, calm down. Anyway, go on.
I'm looking like Bill Nye the Science Guy. I think.
I'm like if Roy Walker had a moustache. Look at me. Hey, look at the catchphrase, so you do. Right, go on.
So, I know exactly who you look like, but I can't think of his name. But I'm like,
Oh,
you look like an overgrown
oh!
Chuckle Brother.
Yes! Yeah.
You're an overgrown Chuckle Brother.
To me.
To me, then that's where it ends because one's dead. Are they both dead now?
No, one's still doing appearances in nightclubs.
Are they?
Yeah.
Hold on, I've got to Google this, man. I know we're on podcast, but are the Chuckle
For those playing the
Brothers
home game in America,
dead.
the Chuckle Brothers were a children's entertainment show on the BBC.
No, oh, one of them's still alive. That means that one of them can resurrect the other one, because that's how it works, isn't it? Yeah. I
Sure.
think they can. If you slice the remaining one down the middle, it'll separate into an additional chuckle. I
But
think.
getting back to Time's Arrow, the payoff at the end, not the guidance
Yeah.
scene, just getting rid of the Davidians.
It's an interesting one because what we have is they go to the cave. They are about to open the portal, and then the aliens actually arrive anyway. The aliens arrive anyway. Data steals the serpent cane off him, activates it himself, and that's what causes Data's head to blow off. That's what causes the explosion that blows Data's head off, opens up a portal, and then essentially fatally wounds the female alien, and then the remaining alien goes grabs the cane, runs through the portal, and seemingly escapes. And then the rest of them, they decide to go through the portal. Picard stays with Guinan, who's been hit by the blast and knocked unconscious. So Picard, for some reason, stays with her, like to protect her. But then Mark Twain cheekily jumps through the portal and
Yeah.
ends up back on the planet. And then the rest of the crew, they're back on the planet, and they can't get back through the portal. And then they basically transport back to the ship, and Mark Twain gets shown around the ship and stuff, and he gets to see the future. And that's when the discussions of him comparing what he knows about humanity to what humanity will become in the future. And it has this good little plot point that I like, which is that it's what inspires him to be so optimistic in his novels. Like, it's the idea of, it's what gives him new faith in humanity, is the idea of going, oh, it all leads up to something great, which is the Federation. And
But
so I like that the plot does that,
It's
but
also
it's a diamond in a pile of shit in terms of the episode.
Yeah, but it's also Twain's realization that he knows he is somewhere that he doesn't belong, and that he needs to go back to the right time.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't belong there, and when they say someone has to go back to save Picard, to save Picard, and he makes he says he makes the decision, it's him, and he needs to go back to the right time because he's seen that the future is not all bleak, and it's not powerful men ruling the world, and if only that was true.
Hey, we've got 200 years to fix it.
And a world war, but we and the eugenics war, and Khan.
It's something to look forward to,
God, I'm sad. But the payoff for the Davidians, I don't know. It's just like, hey, let's just kill them all and move on.
Yeah. We see one of them die, so we realize that they can actually die. But then when Picard is speaking to her, she effectively just goes like, yeah, we're never going to stop. Like, there's no substitute for what we eat. Like, you can't fake it. And then, yeah, and then she just dies. And then Riker's approach is basically like, this is the thing, Riker's not sure. Oh, it's such a stupid plot thing where it only happens in order for the plot to be more suspenseful. But basically they go, hey, should we try and go back in time and save Picard? And they're like, no, we've just got to leave him there. And then what we should do is destroy the planet so that those aliens don't keep eating souls from the past, even though that's what time says they do. But then yeah, and then basically they fire upon the ship. They actually set the missiles. They fire towards the planet. Then Geordi finds the whole thing of going, oh, actually, there's a message encoded in Data's brain. And, oh, it's Picard saying, hey, don't fire the missiles, even though he has no idea that they would be wanting to fire them. There's absolutely no idea he would know to tell them not to do that.
That was my biggest issue with the iron filings and the message. Why? How? Like, in what way did he know that
do you know a way? Can the chat think of a way of why he, or leave a comment below if you have a reason for this, of how Picard would know to warn them of that, not to fire?
Yeah, let us know, because I'm lost.
He does know, okay? Like, he does know a bit, because the alien says, hey, if you blow us up, like, it will destroy this timeline. So basically, somehow, if they fire upon the site, it'll go through the portal and it'll destroy, like, the Earth of the past or something. She says something that, like, alludes to that. But then Picard leaves this overblown message, and Data's like, we need to change the frequency of the missiles. And then they change the frequency of the missiles, and that allows them to blow up the planet without it actually affecting the time stuff. And you're like, how did Picard know that bit? How, because literally all she says is, you can't fire and you'll do that. But then Picard somehow goes, with binary, I'll type the most elaborate scientific message. It's nonsense. But but basically that happens, and then they end up, we have the scene between Guinan and Riker where she goes, oh, I'm not going to help you. So he goes, okay then. He gets told not to fire the missiles by Geordi, so then he goes, oh, well, since we've got 5 minutes, let's go in time and try and, like, save Picard. So they send Twain back into the past. He gets Picard and goes, hey, you need to go through the portal now, kind of thing. But then while this is happening, they're like, oh, well, it's been 2 minutes. Should we fire the missiles? They let the missiles go, and then Picard manages to get through the portal just in time for the before the missiles hit, and it's just bullshit. And then we get, like, that's basically what it's done for the crew. They're done. There's a scene between Guinan and Picard, but it's meaningless in the terms of things, because she just goes, oh, well, that's come full circle, I guess. However, I think the scene I do like, though, is where we have Twain, and he's just recovered. He's helping Madame Guinan. A whole medical team fails to notice the severed android head lying in full view on the floor. Right. And then Twain decides, I know, I'll just leave this gun here, but then I'll leave my watch. Because he does leave his watch there, and then he kind of picks it up to go, oh yeah, my watch. And then he just goes, no, actually, this is meant to be found later, so I'll leave it here. And I like it. I like that little nod that he does there. But the whole... No one notices the android head. Nobody noticed the severed fucking head.
No one noticed this mine shaft.
A medical crew. If I was a medical crew, I would be looking around being like, there's been an accident. Oh, look, a severed head. Is that what I'm here for?
And did they seal the mine shaft after? Was it still in use? The lights were still on? What happened? Because this looked like an active shaft.
Yeah.
And it was just
like, close down the mine. Why?
Yeah.
Because we don't want you to
find
exactly.
The android
head.
How was it sealed up? How was it so sealed up and preserved for 500 years?
Yeah. It's the thing is, like, I think that's it. I think we've got enough now that we can kind of round off the episode, finish discussing this, because I think we've covered everything. I think we've covered all the things down to the point, like Twain and stuff. And I think, so when we talk about these, where we revisit episodes that we put into the Dabo Wheel of Shame, and has my opinion changed on this? And I'm going to be, it has, but in half a way, where it's the fact that the first episode, I think, is brilliant. The first episode, I enjoy. I'm not a fan of time travel ones, but I'm like, hey, this is a good episode. It's a well-written episode. But if we consider both of them together, the second one is awful. And so it kind of evens out as, if only we could watch part 1 without watching part 2, then I would take it out of the Wheel of Shame. But as it stands, I am still like, this is a meh overall episode of Trek.
So I'm going to say my opinion has changed the polar opposite.
Oh God.
It's
all wank.
No, because I said to you, why did you put this in the Wheel of Shame? Blah 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 blah. My opinion is, part 1, brilliant, fantastic cliffhanger to end season 5. Part 2 kills it. When you put them together, if you just watch it as a 2-hour episode, it really takes away from the first hour. It makes that first hour less of a good episode because of the payoffs that you get in part 2. So my opinion has it's slightly changed. It's gone from this is a brilliant 2-parter to no, it could have been a lot better if things were explained and certain, shall we say, plot holes weren't there.
Yeah, the first episode, absolute storm, but the problem is, like with anything, you leave with the last thing that you saw. We have it a lot. We have it a lot in the drag world, where you have a cabaret show. If you put the best performers at the beginning and then the terrible ones at the end, which a lot of people do, where they go, "Hey, let's make a great first impression," and then at the end, people will be drunk, so we'll put whoever on at the end. But you're like, but the people who aren't drunk, they're going to walk away from that being like, "Oh yeah, forgot the people at the beginning were really good. We only have the memory of the people at the end who were bad."
Memory of the last one.
It's that's the thing. It's the idea of if the end of a film is bad, you're going to forget that the beginning was great a lot of the time, that's how I feel about this, where it's but it did give us Twain, it gave us Jack London, who I think is wonderful. We got more Guinan background, but it still wasn't enough.
The payoff
and it's
wasn't
a wonderful good. And the first episode is a wonderful, wonderful Data episode. So
guys, that has been our review of Time's Arrow from the Next Generation. Now, I do have one little tiny fact about this episode.
Oh,
the running joke with the writers when they were discussing settings was that it was going to be set in 1963, where Data inadvertently saves John F. Kennedy.
Oh wow, yeah, because they didn't know that Red Dwarf kind of went there, and it wasn't brilliant.
Well, this was before. Was this before
Red
Dwarf did it?
This is like 99, 91.
This is 92.
Yeah,
this
will be well before Red Dwarf did it. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the only thing I've got for this episode. Do you have any further notes?
I think the only thing I want to mention is that there's a bizarre little throwaway line. I remember this because I don't know much about Mark Twain, but I know that he's got a link to Halley's Comet, where it's the fact of it was one of these bizarre things because he said something which is like he was born on the day that Halley's Comet passed once, and then he died the day after it passed the next time. But he knew this. Apparently he had it as this kind of gypsy curse thing where he kind of went like, this is a thing that's going to happen, everyone. And then the fact that it actually did, but then the fact that the episode has him going, hey, have you ever seen Halley's Comet? Makes you just go like, oh, okay, so it's this little nod to Mark Twain there, but I don't know the exact story.
I think he died. I think he was born when Halley's Comet was in the sky, and then he died when Halley's Comet was in the sky again.
That's what I heard. That's the vague thing that I know about it, and I was just like, I know that there's a connection between him and Halley's Comet.
We're gonna do this. Hang on, Halley.
But to be fair, if I can Google the Chuckle Brothers, I can't really hold it against you. I now have a tab saying, "Are the Chuckle Brothers dead?"
Samuel Clemens, born in 1835 during the return of Halley's Comet, felt a strong connection to it throughout his life. He believed he would die when the comet returned in 1910, and he did indeed die the day after the closest approach to Earth.
Which is interesting that they have him in an episode about the inescapable nature of fate, and then he kind of had an incident of going, hey, I know this is going to happen. So even if the writers didn't intend it, I like the fact that it's like, that's Data's plot. Data's plot is like, hey, I know I'm going to die, and I'm kind of comfortable with that. But the idea that Mark Twain is like going, hey, I know that I'm going to die when Halley's Comet comes back, so I'll just get my stuff done.
Can I also point out the absolute, I mean, this is the last thing we'll mention before we move on. The absolutely amazing feat of makeup that they put on Jerry Hardin for Mark Twain, because when you look at Jerry Hardin as Twain and Samuel Clemens, it is really, really difficult to tell them apart.
And the
it is
acting,
really well done.
Like,
oh.
We talk about this. We have all these famous actors who are in one episode of Trek. Like you know, when we eventually get to do Duet, I'm gonna just be gushing the whole time of just going, "Wow, you're in one episode and you steal the show." But like, this is, yeah, he is phenomenal. That is why we are dressed like this. If he was a crap character in the episode, if he wasn't a character that stole every scene he was in, we wouldn't be dressed like this doing a stupid Eclair skit. And
Lower Decks wouldn't have done it.
Amazing. Yeah, that's it. Absolutely amazing sort of feat of acting and makeup and everything to do with it. Like, all of it, like, the first episode is so wonderful and so endearing. And I love, because I keep thinking about this more and more, the more I sort of end up working with people who are actors and stuff, that, like, they did the whole poker scene where Data wins all the stuff. They got Mark Alimo back, and they had all these other characters, and they have their own costumes. They all have these custom costumes for one scene, and they're never seen again. And the whole set and everything, you just kind of like, that's a lot of, you know, yes, they would have had a couple of those costumes knocking around in, like, the sort of wardrobe and stuff, but, you know,
it's a case
you
of...
see just how much work went into
it's a case of genius design and set dressing, as well as utilizing what Paramount has in store to make a truly unique scene, which will only last a couple of minutes. And that is, again, that is the beauty of 90s Star Trek, where you had such iconic scenes like this, where they were like, yeah, well, this is only going to be on for 30 seconds. Well, it'll be the most highly detailed scene in that 30s. Oh my god.
I'm in my early 80s Vince Clarke stage. I'm about to have an argument with Alison Moyet.
So this is the part of the show where we would normally get a challenge from one of the audience. However, we have yet to receive a challenge. So
it's more the fact of, we're like, sort of, so when are you going to be filming, guys? And we're like, yes. Yep. So it's like, yeah, so it's very difficult to get people like doing stuff when we don't know when we're filming.
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be reaching out to people this week. It is been.
We need a backlog of them. Rather
honestly,
than reaching out when we know that we're doing an episode, we need to just be like, can we just save like
this is what I was going to do.
Challenges. Yeah.
This is what I was going to look. I'm going to be honest with you, right? I was going to reach out to Ellie Littlechild. I was going to reach out to.
It was her birthday recently. Happy birthday, Ellie.
Ellie, you are truly a wonderful human being, despite the fact you like Doctor Who. But happy birthday. No one's perfect. So I was listen. I have a list in my desk. It was going to be Ellie. It was going to be Chris from Trek Culture. It was going to be Mark. I was going to get a few from Isaac, and I was just going to reach out to all of our friends of Trekking Up North and just go, hey, do you want to really make our lives a misery so we never get to watch a good episode of Star Trek?
They really can as well. Like, we're going to run out of Dabo Wheel of Shame at this rate.
Chris tortured me, and I still haven't recovered thoroughly from that one. However, we haven't got a challenge this week. We will get a challenge next week, but I am going to use my captain's prerogative right now. I'm going to use my captain's prerogative. I'm going to use my ability to be Samuel Clemens. Okay. I do declare, with my chocolate eclair, that I am going to take command of the Dabo Wheel.
Oh, all right.
And
take control, Daddy.
I'm going to change it to the good Dabo Wheel, because I think
have we earned that?
We have earned it. We have made so much effort. Science Officer Synoiz has replicated these fine costumes for us this week, and we did a 2-hour review, and I've had a really bad couple of weeks, and Synoiz has been so busy. Fuck it, we deserve it. So, welcome everybody, new, old, one and all, to the Dabo Wheel of episodes. For those that don't know, within the Dabo Wheel, we have two sets. We have the Dabo Wheel of Honor and we have the Dabo Wheel of Shame. Honor has selected good episodes that myself and Science Officer Synoiz have chosen.
The best episodes, what we believe to be the best episodes of Trek.
Yeah. And the Dabo Wheel of Shame are the weaker episodes or the episodes that we think are truly terrible. And I have chosen the Dabo Wheel of Honor this week because I do not want to follow this up with Code of Honor. So...
Oh, damn it!
Captain's prerogative. So, with that in mind, Science Officer Synoiz, we are going to go through the Dabo Wheel of Honor. What episode would you like to see reviewed next time?
It's got to be Duet. It's got to be Duet.
Duet?
Duet is possibly the greatest episode of Trek for me. It's a bold statement, but DS9 Duet is just so incredibly
I'm going
good.
To quickly review what I had. Sacrifice of Angels.
Yeah, another DS9 one. Another.
It has to
I
be...
put both of them in. I put Sacrifice of Angels in though, didn't I? It's not even one of yours.
I mean, In the Pale Moonlight or Sacrifice of Angels for me. I want a DS9 episode. Like I said, I have retreated into Star Trek Deep Space Nine of late, and I feel at home. It is such a weird sensation to watch a TV series and feel like you are home. And feel warm and feel comforted and welcomed in that. And that's what Deep Space Nine means to me. So I do hope we do get a Deep Space Nine episode. So, without further ado, we are about to spin the Dabo Wheel. When it lands on an episode, I want everyone to shout at the top of their lungs, Dabo! And comment down below. So, in 3, 2, 1...
It's more TNG.
God.
This is one of yours, the best of both worlds, and a seminal pinnacle episode of Trek.
This is the greatest two-parter cliffhanger in Star Trek history, if not television.
Isn't it scary though that we've gone from what we classed as the weakest two-parter, like beginning and end and beginning, to the best? Like, I'm not even arguing. This is the best, you know,
of both worlds.
Yeah, that's quite good actually. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for the Dabo.
Thank you. This is This is actually really poignant because on the Search for Trek, which everyone should be subscribing to if you are a fan of Trekking Up North, we are about to
You're nearly
start...
7 minutes in, aren't you?
That's what she said. We are about to start another series of 1 minute at a time.
Oh God, I didn't know this.
And our friends at the Clone Star podcast have recently completed an interview with, guess who? Shelby. So if you have not seen that interview yet, please have a look at the Clone Star podcast.
We'll edit it in. We'll edit it into the description.
It's the link's down there. It's absolutely fine. You can just go on Clone Star. It's right. It's the latest video, so it's absolutely fine. But wow, another Next Generation, but the best cliffhanger.
I'm glad I've got a free weekend this weekend because it means I can actually watch all these two-parters. So, yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers, this has been our review of the Next Gen episodes times Arrow Part 1 and 2. I have been Samuel Clevens, Mark Twain, a.k.a. Captain Goodwill of the USS Adequate. He, over there, has been Science Officer Synoiz, a.k.a. Samuel Clemens, a.k.a. Mark Twain. Thank you.
I'm actually loving this haircut, if I'm perfectly honest. I'm actually liking
you.
This one.
It really does suit you. Thank you so much for everyone who has sat with us live tonight, all the way through our unhinged review of this episode. Thank you thank you so much for everyone who is watching this back. If you like this episode, please give us a like down in the old tickety thing down below. If you are not a subscriber to Trekkin Up North, please give us a subscriber. We are working very, very hard to get back on a schedule where we get.
We're gonna do it. I'm clearing my schedule so that I can actually guarantee that we will do one of these every week until I go to Berlin, and then it gets more complicated. But we will work. We will work around it. Yeah, that's it. Oh God,
Das
I'm
ist
practicing
Berlin.
Oh, I got irrationally angry with the bloody Duolingo thing. Not only is it bullshit AI now, I had the first time since I was like a kid throwing the controller playing like a PlayStation game or something. Like, it was something really bad where it literally corrected me about this thing that wasn't actually. Well, it was one of these things where it basically like it wasn't an error. It was just not the way it wanted you to answer it.
Yeah.
And they both were fine. And it literally, I was like on 48 perfect like streak out of 50. And if I got to 50, it gives me this big like, hey, you got the thing. And I was like, and I complained. I did the Karen thing of going, this should not have been a problem. This should have allowed me to do this. See, my hair's falling.
Oh, do declare the hair.
My hair fall out. But yeah. The other thing I want to mention is obviously what is this?
Your eyebrows are falling off as well.
No, stop it! I'm really sensitive about my eyebrows, but it's just like
alopecia is real.
That's it. I haven't met her, but yeah, the other thing I need to mention is obviously the Nerdy Up North quiz, which we have every month in Sunderland. So if you are in the northeast of England or close by and you want to come through and help us raise some money, we have a very special crossover this month, which is next Saturday, the 14th of June, where we have the Women of Nerd Culture, which is Becca and Sarah Peaches. Who are Peaches. And they're basically going to take over. So we're going to have a woman-focused version of the quiz. We're going to still have all of our stuff. We're going to have a nerdy raffle. We're going to have quiz rounds. We're going to have bingo. Probably some other stuff. So please come down, and we're raising money for Wearside Women in Need, which is a wonderful local support charity. And obviously we'll have quiz mistress Jessica there, and it's a great way to meet new people, meet new friends. So if you don't know anyone but you're into nerdy stuff, we will set you up with some lovely people to talk to and be on a team with.
I may be making an appearance there as well. So I know I have the ability now to move places. It's scary. But yeah, 14th of June to Geek Retreat in Sunderland.
Yep, Geek Retreat in Sunderland.
I've done a lot of questions.
Have you done a lot of questions?
That's terrifying, Sarah. That is very terrifying. But yes, please come and support Synoiz and the quizstress herself, the lovely Jessica, the terrifying goth that she is. Please come down, support Women of Nerd Culture, support Science Officer Synoiz, support Nerdy Up North, and Geek Retreat, who have the best shakes I have ever had in my
They're really nice
life. A Jaffa cake.
They're so nice. I'm wearing a bloody corset when I'm doing the thing, and I'm still like, no, I will drink this, even though it is a terrible mistake for later in the night.
I've got a girdle. Look at my chin. Look at this. Look at this. But no, I have been Captain Goodwill. He has been Science Officer Synoiz. If you liked us, please follow all of our friends down below. You can find Synoiz and myself on all the socials. We both do Twitch. Our links are down in the description below. Are you going to go on Twitch anytime soon, Science Officer Synoiz?
No, I keep getting like Sundays, but I am working on a very special project at the minute, which I will be announcing soon. It is it is something that I've put off for a bit too long, and what I've done is, after having a very, very busy year, as you all know by the fact that there hasn't been many episodes, this is a project that I was meant to work on last year, but I didn't because I got caught up with everything else, and I'm determined, so I've sacked everything off. I've told everyone to go bugger themselves for other projects, and I've made a lot of time in my diary in order to work on it, and we will be seeing the fruits of it, the starting fruits of it, the first harvest quite soon, so I'll probably be mentioning that in another episode. which should be quite
very
fun.
excited about this. I am so excited. I've also made myself unemployed. But yes, so
That was for me. That was to make
it was
time.
purely just for you.
me.
Purely just for you. So until next time, my lovelies, I want you all to take care of yourself, look after each other, live long and prosper, and as ever, on Trekkin up north. Miles,
Mouth!
Miles,
No!
Miles.